and if it's cut to length, which means it's like 9 foot 4 inches, so it's a lot not as efficient. But if it's an actual 10-foot wall, then you're using an actual stud. Now the price is fine, but you got to come over here and determine if you're adjusting the price for the material. You need to go back to the task tab, and that will alter in everywhere in all your assemblies. But then you can come over here and say, okay, is it 16 inches on center? Is it 2 foot on center? Well, let's just say we're doing it 2 foot on center. You also have the factor for your corners, so you can build your assembly with taking in consideration in corners and interior wall butts, or you can make it so that you can have another assembly just for junction points, however you want to do it. If I'm doing it on an inside, I usually just use it as a factor of the running foot. So let's say, for example, if I'm doing 16 inches on center, I would normally put this at 1 stud per running foot, and then that would compensate for any of the butts or the corners or additional studs that were needed. But since this one's going to be at 2 foot on center, it actually is only using 1 per every 2 feet. But you're going to have some waste involved, you're going to have some things. So instead of being a conversion rate of how many of these per running foot of 0.5, I'm going to say it's 0.6. So what that means is for every running foot of this wall, I'm using 6/10 of a stud. Now, you and I both know there's no such thing as using 6/10 of a stud. But when you are calculating, you're not installing 1 running foot of wall. So if you were actually installing, just making it easy, 10 running foot of this wall assembly, 10 times 0.6 is 6. So you're actually using 6 of these studs. And that's how the conversion rate works. And then the subtotal is a subtotal per running foot. So you add all these up, and that's how that's calculated. And then, so I got the walls, studs, plates, so on and so forth. Now I can stop there and say that's the only thing that I'm doing, or I can come in and add in drywall. I'm going to quickly go through some of these so you can watch it quick. And drywall calculated per square foot. And I'm going to say what's the square footage calculation. So if I'm going over 1 foot and it's 10 foot high, there's 10 square feet per running foot. Is that right? Yes. So that's meaning that I need, for every running foot of this wall that I need 10 square foot of drywall. So that's the conversion factor. If it's an interior, you'll have it on both sides. So it's not actually 10. You're going to have it on one side at 10 and the other side at 10. So it's actually 20 running foot. Okay, so, and quickly I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to throw some factors in. These may not be 100% accurate, but I'm going to paint the walls. This comes in a square footage as well, so I'm going to have 20 square foot. And then, let's see, we got drywall, we got paint. It was an interior, so we don't need insulation. We need base. Say we knew we're going to make it so it's always going to have a standard paint grade base. And we could swap these out. These are just standards for right now, so when you're calculating it, it shows up, and then when you do the actual estimate, you can put them in there and you say, I want this type of base instead of the standard. And it's really easy to change it, but we need something there to basically as a placeholder so we can remind ourselves in the future so we don't miss anything. Base is 2 running foot. 2 running foot of base per running foot of the wall, because you've got it on both sides again. So, and then we're going to have to paint the base. And if you do it by the square footage basis of the floor, it just all depends on how you do your estimates, is how you want to put it in here. But I got these components built in this way, so I'm going to leave it like that. So I got the base and the trim and the paint of the walls and the drywall, the studs built. So that's basically what I need. If I am, the only thing I need to do is determine if I'm actually, my efficiency. Let's say this was going to be on the 4th floor, or in a hard location. If we said this was hard access, well, it may take a little longer to do it, so you can adjust the efficiencies. This is just a starting point, so you can always adjust it within the estimate itself as well. Anyways, I just made a small little assembly, interior wall 6, so you can see what it is. It's for every running foot of this wall, it costs $50.83. Fine and dandy, but as you can see right here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items. Didn't take very long to build it, but from now on to eternity, until you don't want to use it anymore, those 7 items, every time that I put in this wall assembly, will automatically be calculated, and you never have to rebuild it again. So you may have limitless number of assemblies combined together in different fashions and components. But what does that do? So let's go back to an estimate. I'm just going to choose one here that don't have a lot of stuff or anything in it, and we'll show you real quick what that does. One of the things you're going to take notice of is that this one has the BOSStimator+ already module in it, so it takes a little longer to load because it's actually connecting to the internet right now. But I'm going to go ahead and delete all of these items. Actually, see, I think I got it as an assembly, so nope. Delete all those items. And then I'm going to go, I could manually come in here and do the same thing we did for each assembly. So I can type in 2x6 and then do that, and then do the 2x6 studs and just manually do it. But I would be doing that for every estimate that I needed this 2x6 wall. So I could do it that way, and it took me, you know, about 10 minutes to do that. And 10 minutes isn't a long time, but if you're doing that 10 minutes per every estimate, that adds up real quick. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go ahead and use the assembly. I'm going to go to the assembly tab, and I can use the category, so I can pull it down and say, okay, I want the framing assembly, so only the framing assemblies are going to be shown here now. And you can see that there's that wall assembly that we just did. That's why we categorize that as framing. So I'm going to do that, and it says, okay, how many running foot of it? And let's say we're building a 10-foot wall, like we were talking about. Easy enough. And look, there are those 7 items that we just created already in here, calculated per running foot. So remember I said we had 10 foot of those studs, so we needed 6 of those. So it calculated we needed 6, 20 foot of base, 200 square foot of drywall, and 20 foot of painting the trim, and we need $508. So that's great. So let's say that was one wall. So let's go back in here, and I'm going to do another wall assembly. I'm just going to start typing it in. 10 foot, 6 inches, and that wall's 255 feet. No big deal. We just did that one at 255, and as you can see, it starts componenting it up. Now, if you were building that manually, you just doubled your time, because you'd have to go back and put those 2x6s in again or add them up. If you ever wanted to combine them together, you can come over here and you can, and there's an assembly ID number that you can sort it by, because that's how this ID relates to that ID. So if you want to say I only want to see what was made up of that interior wall, then you just come in here, select it, go to the ID field, and say I only want 101. So that's the only items that are in this here section. Don't worry about if the prices are wrong. There must be something definitely wrong with the price of that there, but we'll worry about that after a while here to figure out why the prices are potentially off. But that's what assemblies do. So it's very easy to come in here and create a overall project, slab on grade, 1200 square foot, and we'll get more into this in another tutorial. Let's see, perimeter of it, let's say it was a 30 by 40, it's 140, so on and so forth. And I can continue going down through this, but I just made the concrete and the interior walls, and right now it's not showing any difference because it's still filtered yet, because we went over here and we only wanted ID of that. So I'm going to unfilter it. So now I got all these things in here. I have a material list that's already been being created with the items, because all these items are located in those individual components. I got 99 different items now, so it's basically calculating the 2x6s. So we can make a bid package, a framing, and it will actually put all the framing bid packages together, calculate it up, tell us how many running foot of each, and put it in a format that can be sent out to vendors. That's a different module, but that's called the BOSStimator+, but it works in conjunction with assemblies, and also works in conjunction with tasks and the items. So there's your material list for your framing package. I calculated I needed 8.75 of these. We needed 9, So basically it helps you do everything you needed to do and calculates it up. That's the brief tutorial on assemblies. We'll get into some advanced assemblies in the future, but that's what assemblies are. And as you can see, the first time it's not a labor saver, because you're going to build it in the assembly instead of building it on your estimate. But every time from there on out, you never have to build it again. And if you ever have to come back and change it, like we were talking about, so you don't want that base, you want to change that base into a different type of base, like we were talking about, we can come down here and say, I want to swap out that base to, let's say I'm going to swap it out to a brick base. That's fine. Hey, so you're exchanging it. Are you sure you wish to do this? Yes. Do you want to exchange this single item, so just that one, or do you want to press yes to exchange this single items, or no to exchange all like? So every place that base was in there is now been changed, and you just changed the type of base that was used on your entire project. That fast, that quick, that easy. Anyways, watch additional tutorials, but that's assemblies. It is amazing. An estimator don't want to go without having the assemblies. If you have any questions or any concerns, always feel free to call the boss.